All right, hello, welcome back to Digital Marketing Masterclass Live. We've got a really special show for you today. We have Ronak Sheth of LIT Books. If you are not familiar with LIT VideoBooks, you absolutely have to check it out. It's pretty funny. Every once in a while, I stumble upon technology that I feel like it really doesn't have any counterpart that I can explain what it's actually like. And what I mean by that is that I've talked about Voxer, I've talked about these other tools that sometimes technologies come and they just exist, and it's just one of those things where until you've experienced it, you'll never really understand the power of what it is. And LIT VideoBooks is absolutely one of them. I'm addicted to this product, and the first chance I got, I reached out to Ronak and I said, hey, you know what, I want to have you on the show. And funny enough, we're actually, when you grew up, we were practically neighbors. So tell us, Ronak, tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us about where you grew up.
Yeah. So I grew up, our family is kind of in the suburbs, Philadelphia. Grew up there, loved it. I feel like the city has grown a ton. I love coming back, and like the restaurant scene, just the energy is amazing. Then I went to NYU, to the business school there. Studied finance, marketing, and minored in it was basically like this entertainment, media, and technology minor. I think my dad is an entrepreneur, and I think it was kind of like in my blood. And I always wanted to start my own company, but I didn't. I didn't think I really had the experience to do so in the way that like a modern tech company works, right? It was more kind of like the mom and pop, like family business that he ran, it was an international trade, but I didn't really have the formal training at like a tech company, and so after NYU. I interned in consulting and banking, and then I was like, you know what, like I don't want that to be my first job. I want to go like right into it. This was in 2014 when there were, you could count the number of startups in New York on your hand, right? On one hand. It was a very nascent scene for Silicon Alley, I guess. I came across this company it was formerly called BounceX, now it's called Wonderkind, that was doing this really cool stuff in the marketing space. And they, now you see it everywhere, but they had patented this thing called exit intent technology, where if your cursor breaks the browser plane, right, that's called, a bounce. And they were able to track that, the nanosecond velocity at which the cursor breaks the browser plane, and on any website show some sort of campaign or media based on that action, right? So the idea was like, hey, outside of Amazon, which has a relatively high conversion rates are pretty low across the board on e-commerce, right? Like 5% is like absolutely incredible. And so there's a way to convert some of that abandoning traffic by reacting to them in some way when they abandon, to say, hey, get $5 off the items in your cart if you enter your email, right? So I just thought what they were doing was really cool. And, joined the company. There were about 15 people there when I joined. It grew to 450 in 3 years. Moved to the New York Times building, then One World Trade, and it was just very fortunate to kind of grow with the company. And so, really was able to cut my teeth at a tech company and kind of see it grow from 0 to 1. And our CEO Ryan, who's one of our first investors at LIT, he always kind of had this mindset of, no employee is an employee that just has to stay in you have these number of tasks and this is what you have to do every day. It was like, take any big challenge that you think could move the company forward and own it and figure out how to do it, right? It didn't matter if you were right out of school or if you were a seasoned executive, right? That's like the mentality that he had. He just wanted everyone to kind of bat above their above their average, right? Like really kind of go above their skills and outside their comfort zone. And so, I think I really learned a lot about how to build a company and how to, kind of just see how a company can evolve over time. And I always wanted to start my own. And I guess this is the segue into how LIT VideoBooks came to be. So, reading was a huge part of our culture. We had a private library that was hidden in our New York Times office. every time a new book like Radical Candor, High Output Manager would come out, like Ryan would buy it for the whole company and put it on everyone's desks and really encourage
Wow.
learning. And we even had fireside chats where we'd have people like Dan Ariely, Scott Galloway, Cialdini come in and speak because
Wow.
principles of influence, the ideas that go into Contagious, those books are kind of foundational to
Hmm.
everything we were doing from a marketing perspective. So
Yep.
really ingrained part of the culture. And I think I was on a flight to Los Angeles. We were closing a deal with this company out there, and it was Ryan and I, and I was listening to this audiobook, Grit by Angela Duckworth, great book,
Yep.
and he was reading Persuasion by Robert Cialdini, and an hour and a half into the flight, he was like, "What's going on in Grit?" And both of our screens were blank. But I told him, I was like, look, honestly, I haven't been paying attention for the past, hour or so, like in and out. I've been watching Wolverine on the screen in the row in front of me, in between the seats and like reading the subtitles. And it just kind of started a conversation between us because, he has a learning disability where it's really hard for him to get through physical books and to pay attention to audiobooks. But you can very easily pay attention to the mix, right, of audio visual, watching a movie, documentary. And so there started a conversation between us about how, we really identify as visual learners. And, we'll remember a quote from a movie we saw, 10 years ago, but forget an article we read just yesterday, right? And so there's just something really powerful about that mix of different kinds of content. It was really interesting to us that the kinds of books that we were reading that really kind of fall within this prescriptive nonfiction category, right? Books like Influence by Robert Cialdini, books like Contagious by Jonah Berger, and everything spanning things like the Book of Awakening, The Untethered Soul. You don't really see those in documentary or movie-like format that's highly produced, and you'll have the TED Talks that are out there, right? And you'll have the 10-minute whiteboard animated explainer videos on YouTube, but there's nothing like really, really high quality bringing those books to life. Um,
Yep.
Sometimes you would see it on the narrative side, right?
Hmm.
Like the story of the Golden State Murder, the story of Uber, the story of WeWork, right?
Hmm.
But you don't really see it with prescriptive nonfiction in particular that's more, science, research based. And so I just thought it was really interesting. Just emailed myself video X books, and I researched it to see if there was anything out there that kind of was basically a product catered to me and Ryan, because we just felt that there was a lot more people out there, and we
Hmm.
learned that was the case. And 2/3 of us identify as visual learners.
Yep.
Storytelling since the early days was, yes, like you would hear people talking around the campfire, but really you're seeing people act, right? That raw motion is what
Hmm.
helps you really understand and
Hmm.
digest a story. And so basically, fast forward, to the beginning of the company. I met this agent, Jim Levine, who people probably think of the publishing industry as, hey, this thing has been around for forever, right? And hasn't really changed that much. Like
Sure.
75% of sales in America from in book publishing still come from print, right? And there's this idea that like ebooks would completely revolutionize the industry. Audiobooks would take everything over, right? But
Yep.
that combined it's still about 25%, and
So a lot of
the
reading.
majority is still print. And so you know they're very kind of entrenched in their old ways, I would say.
Hmm.
Very hard to kind of make rapid innovation. Most of the innovation in the industry happened from, companies like Audible and
Hmm.
Goodreads and Kindle, all of which kind of live with Amazon now, of course.
Yep.
But it all kind of happened outside of it. And very kind of slow moving industry. And so it was difficult to find someone that was like, hey, I'm willing to try this new thing that could risk this initial business. But
Yep.
Jim, was very different than most other agents. Very progressive, early investor in Audible. Saw the opportunity immediately when I met with him, and so he actually represented three authors that were speakers at WonderKind. So that's how I got introduced to him, because those authors were like, "Oh, this video book idea is kind of cool. You should talk to Jim." And so Jim was basically like, "Look, I will you're gonna have to figure out how this new category works, how the rights work, how the economics work,
Yeah.
how the whole legal aspect of it will work, and what the format is like. But if you can prove to me that you'll create great content, represent our authors' brands well, I know that
Mhm.
for all these authors, the audiovisual kind of movie rights sit nascent, right? As compared to, people like Mike Isaac of Super Pumped, whose, book is now
Mhm.
the show on Showtime about Uber, or,
Sure.
Golden State Murder, or like Gillian Flynn with fiction. It's like all of these authors, the video rights and the movie rights are underutilized or not utilized at all. So he was
Yep.
like, this could be a big opportunity for my clients. And so, he worked with me to kind of build up this new category that we now call video books. And, we have about 150 deals signed now with top authors. It's a new category. We're the only ones that are in it right now. It's pretty
Yeah.
small. But, our goal is we just want to take the amazing learnings within these books and have them reach the broadest possible audience. There's just, we live in this world now where, we spend in America apparently 5 hours a day watching TV and video, and that is massive
Mhm.
compared to reading or audio or any other format. And
Yeah.
we just want to really meet people where they are and make it accessible and as easy for anyone to learn from a book as it is to just sit and turn on the TV and watch a movie. And
Yeah.
so yeah, we're Lit Video
Yeah.
Books, and we own everything. So we're fully vertically integrated. We partner directly with the authors. We create all the content in house, and we also distribute it exclusively
Mhm.
on our website.
Yep.
So
So I'm going to take a moment now. I'm going to show you one of the books, the first one that I had saw, which was called Contagious. And let me just give you a real quick snippet of what it actually looks like. When you see the production value and all of the thought that goes behind it, and if you've read the book and then you watch the book, same book, very different experiences, but the knowledge just, I don't know how to describe it. It just flat out works. So let me kind of just show you, the listener, what this looks like.
People will compete over anything, but notice to compete about it, they have to have a number or a situation where they can compare themselves to others.
Airlines have done a wonderful job of turning the friendly skies into a battleground for social currency, using frequent flyer programs. You might think they build customer loyalty by giving rewards, like free flights. But less than 10% of miles are ever cashed in, leaving tens of trillions sitting unused in frequent flyer accounts. That's enough to travel to the moon and back 20 million times.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you are absolutely in a category to your own. Like, I've seen some other products. I've seen Mentor Box. I've seen some Google Talks from authors and stuff like that. This is a very, very different experience in the aspect of, it's literally like taking a book, turning it into a documentary. But I also think the timing and the production value and just how much thought it takes to kind of bring that to life I'm just so impressed with what you've built. So, it's phenomenal. Let me ask you a question. This is just something that when I try to explain this to others of like why I like it so much. The reason why I like it so much, and this sounds really weird, is that I've had a company for 21 years. We have nearly 50 employees. I'm a horrible reader, but I crush books. In other words, I go through a lot of books per year. The problem is that I will spend time. I'll get through the book. I usually do a lot of them on Audible, but I only really remember 10%, maybe 15%. But I just remember like watching like your video books, and I remember thinking like, you know what? I'm so good at watching a movie and then remembering the lines from the movie after only seeing it one time. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a freaky thing that I'm able to do it. I married my wife. She has this crazy gift. My kids are 6 and 4, and they watch certain cartoons and they can remember it. But if I read a book to them, they don't. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's the way you learn. But I think it's just this perfect sauce of like visually entertaining, and it just kind of creates a much better learning process. When you see it, you feel it, you develop the emotion. I think the cadence from which you do, your production value, I think all of it just flat out works. So have you seen that in your studies or anything like that? Have you just found out that there's just different types of learners? I mean, we know that, but I'm saying, have you seen how the difference between written, audio, and then now visual? Like, what have you experienced?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's kind of crazy you mentioned that because I think it's just inherently human, right? I think we're just visual animals. We'll remember the raw emotion of any story, right? But it's because we watch it. Like we could still quote something from Fight Club, right?
Yeah.
You know, I saw that 15 years ago, and
Yep.
that's just how we are, though, right? Like we a visual can stick with you for so much longer than like a line of text, right? And for me,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm reading a book that I really want to understand, I'll have to reread it multiple times, right? I'll have to reread the same chapters over and over again. Whereas with video books, I think it's very different because one, it's easier to just hit play and watch something again, right? If you want to re-understand the concept of like social currency or triggers. But what we've seen, and there's a lot of research out there about this, is that humans just process visual information much faster than other information, right? You know, within 13 milliseconds, you can process something visually. It takes so much longer to do that through audio, through reading. And then the retention is just so much longer, right? You'll watch one scene and you'll still remember that Kit Kat and coffee pairing, right?
Yeah.
From Contagious. Because, and the crazy thing with Contagious in particular, right? And what we do with all of our books is we say, okay, obviously we have the author as the expert, right? They know the book better than anyone else and the topic, and it's very conversational. But we say, who are all the other important characters or people or stories in the book? And let's actually go and interview those people, right? And hear the stories directly from them firsthand. And so hear the story about, you know, Please Don't Tell, we talked to the founder, right? And we interviewed the founder. And so there's something very special about the stories in the book that Jonah is referencing actually coming to life from the person that, you know, didn't even know that they may have been part of Contagious, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
then, you know, I think the other piece that's really important for us is, you know, we want it to be really engaging throughout the entire hour or so, right? We take all the important ideas, and when you're reading something, you know, let's say it's social currency, you need 5, 6, 7 examples, and maybe one will stick, right? But when you're watching something, you know, movies are not 8 hours long, right? You know, they're almost always less than 2.5 hours long. It's because you spend so much effort in telling one part of one story accurately through animation, through sound, through music, through raw emotion, that you only need one example, right? And so that's the beauty of video compared to audio or text, is that you really don't need the 10, 15, 20 examples per idea that are present within business books, you know, across the board. You just need to show one really well, and that will stick with you, right? And so, you know, we really want this to be a format that is very efficient for people to consume as well. Like, you can learn about social currency and take, you know, an hour or two to, you know, go through the book chapter. You can just spend 10 minutes and be able to have, you know, a coffee conversation with someone that read the actual book chapter and, you know, understand the information.
It's funny because I watched Profit First. I never read Profit First. I watched Profit First with you guys. And when I was explaining what a unique thing it would be to implement that into our own company, I was explaining it to my business partner, but I was seeing it in my mind because I had watched it in a movie. Do you know what I mean? And it's a very funny thing in the aspect of, because he's kind of like looking at me like I'm in a different place, because it wasn't just theory that I read. I was just like, I literally watched it like it was a movie 2 days ago. You know what I mean? And he's like, you're really passionate about this. I'm like, dude, you got to just see it. You got to see what I'm talking about. He's like, well, send me an article. I'm like, I don't want to send you an article. I want to send you the book. And I want you to watch the book, you know? Yeah. You know what's also funny about the way you cut your stuff is that once I've watched it once, when I drive, I can listen to it the second time without watching it. But the cadence, when you develop something for audio only, right? The cadence, I don't know how to describe it, but like in my mind I can explain it, that it's just, I don't know how to describe it, but like it doesn't go super high and it doesn't go super low. It's neutral, right? But you can't be neutral in the visual experience. You know what I mean? And what I find is that just listening to something that was built for video, if I've seen it once, I don't know how to describe it, but like the audio comes to life at a much different level than an audiobook. So
Yep.
while I love the visual, if you watch it again, the audio actually works just as well. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a bizarre thing. I don't know that you've experienced that or not, but
No, that's actually really cool. That's the first time I've heard about that.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I spend 40 hours a month in my car. You know what I mean? And I can't watch it in my car. You know what I mean? But I love to be able to just know a topic, and then when I'm going to talk about a topic, get a refresher. And so I'll just like I have YouTube Premium in my car, and just some other things. And what I'll do is I'll just get to the spot that I want to listen to, and I'll just kind of digest that as I drive. And yeah, it's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So tell me about the production team it takes to bring these type of things alive. So you got script writers, you got, like, what's the team look like?
Yeah. So, we have probably about 35 to 40 people on the production team, some full-time, some kind of contractors, freelancers that are part-time. But, right now it takes about 3 months to produce a video book from, the moment a book deal is signed to, when it's published on our platform. And I mean, wow, there's probably, we have kind of like 4 main areas, right? There's like, well, basically pre-production, production, and then post-production, right? Pre-production is basically, our producers and our, writers and our, senior story producers. By the way, just so you know, many of our talent, Emmy award-winning documentary producers. They were at places like Vox Explained, have done a bunch of shows on HBO and otherwise. So, content that is very like factual, but very like brought to life in a very unique way, right? I think Vox Explained is probably the closest in terms of the blend of different media that we use, and that's also part of the things that make video books very unique. It's like it's not just an author on screen, talking for 2 hours, because that gets boring very quickly unless it's like an absolutely, incredible speaker, right? We have interviews with, important people that are mentioned within a book. We have the author, we have animation, we have archive footage, we have stock, we have, so many different things that come together so that there's high, just high fidelity throughout the whole thing. It really feels like you're not going to get bored watching any video book. That part is very important to us. And so basically what we do is we'll have a creative brief, right? And say, here are the most important things in each book chapter. And here are the most important characters within each book chapter, right? And then we'll center everything around the initial author interview. So that takes, about half a day of an author's time. And essentially, that is like a conversation between our producer and the author, right? And they'll have the questions just roughly beforehand so that they like know what they have to answer, but it's never scripted, right? It's just a conversation. And we basically build the initial script around that author interview and the interviews of other important people in the book. So like we just launched Loon Shots recently with Safi Bakal. We had Ed Catmull, the founder of Pixar, John Rubinstein, who created the iPod, the founder of Moderna, Bob Langer. And so, we really architect the story around the author and then the other interviews, right? And then we say, okay, there are so many important things that need to be communicated in this video book. Some will be best communicated through animation. And that can be anything from like visualizing data and charts to just bringing an entire scene to life, right? Or we'll say, hey, we need to reenact this with like a live action scenario. So we'll go and film with actors to bring a certain story to life. You'll see that in Influence by Robert Cialdini. We have a lot of live action, right? And then, in other instances, we'll heavily rely on archive. So $1 Trillion Coach by Eric Schmidt was one of our titles, right? And there's a lot of archive. That was about Bill Campbell, who coached, CEOs of companies that in Amalgam were, now it's actually a 3 or $4 trillion coach, right? And so through Jonathan Rosenberg, Eric Schmidt, we got a lot of, archive of, people, Bill with people like Steve Jobs and others. And so it's this whole kind of process, right, where we say, here are the most important points in each chapter. We have to bring them to life in a really compelling way. Let's use the author bites, other bites, all the various things from animation and whatnot to be able to bring it to life. And then we get the author's feedback on the script. And then we go into,
What's that like? I mean, like, if you're taking a full book, there's a lot of things that have to hit the cutting room floor.
Yep.
And to the author, it's probably like, hey, that's one of my babies right there that just didn't make the movie, right? You know what I mean? What's that
Yeah,
like? Is it
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you got to trust me? We understand, you know what I mean? Like, because you could write a book and not know what it takes to develop a video book the way you're doing, you know what I mean? And it's like, you got to go to this brilliant author and kind of be like, trust the process. You know what I mean? Like, does that happen?
Initially it was much harder. Now I think because we have, I think 19
Yeah.
as of today, right? It's become like people kind of know what the format is and they understand like everything's not going to make it in the book.
Yeah.
But it's very important to us that the authors, like every single author of ours, like absolutely loves the end product, right? And it's super important to us. But we make sure that we lay out like, hey, here are the things we are going to include. Like, if you think there's an example in the book that we just completely missed, that you think is like crucial that we have in there, we're open to that, right? Like, our producers will always kind of be open to like author feedback. But the nice thing is, because with a movie adaptation, right? If you're like adapting Harry Potter into a movie, like, a massive amount of you're straying so far away from what is in the book to be able to dramatize something, right?
Sure.
With video books, that's not the case. We're largely focusing on the ideas and examples and content that's already in the book. So it's not like the authors won't typically dislike anything that we put in the video book, because it's like they already wrote about it. Right? It's already in the book, it's visualized. But the nuanced part is just making sure, like, are we representing their work correctly? Right. There's so many things that go into it, right? It's like, is the science portrayed correctly? Is the tone correct? There's so many little things that go into it. But I think we've gone through the process a bunch, and we haven't had too many crazy.
Okay.
All the authors have been like really kind of pleasant to work with.
That's great. That's great. I would be so afraid that he's like, but I really love the last line that I had in the 8th page of chapter 4, and you're like, dude, I love that line too, but it doesn't fit in the flow or the arc or whatever I'm trying to do here. I don't know. It just, I cringe when I try to think about, like, like the hard calls you have to make to people that have already made a brilliant work, where you're like, sorry, that piece didn't make the cut. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just kind of funny to know that you sort of have that power, that you go to them and be like, hey, I want to get it right. But it can't be 8 hours too. You know what I mean?
It's pretty crazy, because, like, typically with the movie or TV adaptation, authors have almost no say on the screenwriting, right? And so they're actually like pleasantly surprised with how much say they have with this, right? But it's like, it would just feel wrong to not have them involved at certain key points throughout, because it is their book, right? Like, we're not doing the Harry Potter adaptation to like whatever makes sense for Hollywood. This is the essence of each important part of the book brought to life, right? So we're like, we have to do right by the authors always.
Now tell me about your own psychology here. Not psychology, but like, when we build websites for clients, and when they first see the website, we all fall in love with it, right? And well, in theory, right? But then we work on it for 90 days straight. And then by the time we launch it, we're like, I can't wait to launch this thing, right? Because it's like I built the damn website like 5 times over. You know what I mean? Like, how do you still keep it fresh when you probably have spent, like, you take a book, I'm gonna keep saying Contagious, but you probably, to make an hour-and-a-half movie, you probably spent how many hours building it and rebuilding it and rewatching it and rewatching it and rewatching it? Like, are you like so tired by the end of a production? It's like you love it, but you're like, if I watch that one more time, I'm gonna go nuts. Is it like that, or is it?
It's interesting, because I think while the format is distinct, right, there's variations within it, right? Like, influence looks very different than profit first, right? And it just will, because like inherently each book is different. Like, we did a book on potty training, we did a book on spirituality, we're doing a book on health and wellness called How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger, right? And so I think, within categories, right, you start to see some similarities, but because each book is unique and different, it becomes like a new challenge for producers. And the way we have it is each producer works on 2 books, one in kind of like the earlier phase and one in a later phase. And so, it's not like one person is working across all, because then, well, it just wouldn't be feasible from a time perspective, but they would also kind of get, you know, a little bit jaded, right? And a little bit like, hey, like
Sure.
I've done this so many times before. But yeah, you know, I think that from an author perspective, we actually ask very little of them. You know, we say it in all of our, Andy, who is our COO, he was the chief content officer at Audible for like 7 years before. You know, he always likes to emphasize that, you know, because all these authors that are best-selling authors are very busy, right? They're teaching, they're speaking, they're consulting, they're, you know, writing a new book. There's so many things happening all the time that we say, you know, we really don't take more than a day of an author's time throughout the whole 3-month process, right? And so our team really handles pretty much all of the work. You know, every now and then there's obviously authors that want to be more involved, right? But predominantly we've kind of stayed true to that. And so, you know, I think we keep it light on the author side purposely because they just don't have that much time, right? And for us, you know, we kind of like where it's like the author is the expert in writing, right? Like the author is an expert in writing the book. Our production team is the experts in creating a really compelling video book, right? And so I think like, because we produce this so many times and the authors kind of understand that, they kind of like give us the leeway to say, hey, look, like we know you've done this well for, you know, my 5 or 6 other friends that are already on your platform, right? So I trust you. And so it took time to get there. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's kind of a new challenge every time with each new book that we produce. You know, it's, I mean, it's funny, like early on, I would see every cut from, you know, like rough cut to rough cut 2 to fine cut to fine cut 2 to every animation inside and out. And now really the production team kind of oversees everything. And I see like the general style that we want to do for a video book, and then ultimately the you know, the fine cut before it's sent to the author, right? And so our you know, our team has really kind of started to take ownership over it. But you know, I would say the awesome thing about our production team is like, you know, compared to a lot of the other gigs and stuff that they've worked on, they just feel really tied to the mission of the company, right? It's like we're creating things that are going to help people in some way, right? It's going to better their lives, their careers, their relationships, whatever it might be, in some way. And so they feel really tied to the mission.
But you're also trailblazing. Like you said, you're your own category. No one's ever done this before. And it's, I don't know, in my opinion, it's got to feel very special doing, it's like going where someone has never been. Do you know what I mean? You've always seen it in snippets or bite-sized things, you know what I mean? But yeah. You know what's funny? There used to be the show's probably still on. There was a show called The Prophet. Have you ever seen The Prophet? Profit?
NBC?
Yeah, Marcus Lemonis.
Yeah.
So he's an entrepreneur and he takes over a business, right? And they're trying to heighten the drama, the arguments, the tears, all that stuff like that. And he's going to talk about, hey, you've lost like $2 million in this ice cream shop. And then it finally gets to the scene, and it happens every time like clockwork, where he stands behind a green screen. And then he talks about the economics of how he's going to buy a coffee shop, develop the brand, develop the product, multiply the brands and stuff like that. And all of these infographics are going on behind him, right? And just even average people who aren't even entrepreneurial. Like I'm like a serial entrepreneur, and I'm also a nerd with that stuff. Like my wife and other people, it's like you can see the light bulb go on. He's like, oh my gosh, that's why he's doing it, right?
Yeah.
But that's only in a 1 hour episode. That's probably 3 minutes of a 1 hour episode. Do you know what I mean? And so like what I was trying to describe to my assistant when we were talking about the interview I was going to have for you, it was just like, imagine that, but just for like an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a really cool process of kind of just sort of what you built. I'm really impressed that way. Tell me about momentum. I'm switching gears a little bit. You know, you create the first book, right? Nobody sort of knows that Lit Video Books exist. How do you get the word out? And then at what point did you start to really still feel the momentum? You know, you're on, how many books do you have now? Over 20?
Yeah. We are launching our 19th and 20th before the end of July.
And then how do you get the word out to other individuals that this even exists?
Yeah. It's You know, we kind of started with Contagious as the first ever video book, right, that we launched. And it's pretty crazy. Within the first 6 months, we had more video book customers than there were sales of print, audio, and ebook in the US combined.
Oh my gosh.
Without the most important thing for us is without diminishing the underlying sales of the book. You know, Contagious came out in 2013, right? And it's had pretty consistent sales and traction since then. You know, it's been that top 5 marketing book for quite some time. And so what we saw is like we're bringing in this new audience, right? Some people already read the book, listened to the audiobook, but there were others that were kind of just generally interested in marketing and like Jonah Berger, but they may not be readers, right? Which is most people. And so what we saw was, you know, some really interesting things with our first release. Like over 70% of people that started the video book finished it within 30 days, which is 3 to 4x higher than other book formats, right? And so it was just, we saw all these things that got us really excited, and we were like, okay, you know what? Like, I think people like this. Like, let's go make some more of these. And you know, we started to, you know, now we're at the point where I would say kind of like there's a balance of marketing, right? The nice thing is our authors are very influential. They're excited about the video book and they share it and promote it to their audiences, right? Across LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok on a pretty ongoing basis. Then we also do the classic investments in paid media, right? On Facebook and TikTok. Then another channel for us that's actually been, you know, pretty surprising that we didn't know would be a way for us to kind of get more traction was bulk sales in B2B. And so
vlog sales, did you say?
Bulk sales.
Oh, bulk. Yeah. Yep.
To you know, corporations, and the reason is, you know, Jonah and many other authors, they're very well regarded, you know, speakers. Right. And so they'll go to, you know, Nestle or 3M or Coca-Cola or Wharton or wherever it might be and speak. And as part of that, they often sell books in bulk, right, as part of their speaking fee. And so what people saw, especially during COVID, is that, you know, it's hard to ship 500 books to 500 different addresses, and it's expensive. Andy built the Audible for Business bulk sales unit at Audible, and they've really struggled because, you know, the unit economics are very expensive for audio, and also globally the rights are totally fragmented, right? Like you only have North American rights typically for distribution. There's different rights in Brazil and you know any other country, and translation rights. And so if you're, you know, talking to a global company that's larger, it's, you know, half the company or half the people won't really get access to it. And so what we saw is with video books, you know, it's shorter, it's only an hour, it's very easy, one-click checkout. We're fully vertically integrated, so we're very flexible when it comes to, you know, pricing for like a large group, right? And, you know, people actually watch it either before or after a speaking event. And so, you know, we really started to see traction from authors just selling the video book in bulk to their speaking engagements, because they were like, this is just so much easier than trying to sell physical books, you know, and mail it to all these different addresses. And the client can get a much lower rate. And so that was a big catalyst. And what ended up happening is, you know, let's say we did a deal with Google. You know, those couple thousand people at Google that got access are now on our platform, right? And they have to create accounts, and as long as they don't opt out of marketing, you know, we then kind of market to them other books that are coming out. And so that's been a pretty big catalyst as well. So, you know, I'd say basically authors, you know, paid media, as well as bulk sales and B2B kind of been the big drivers.
Are you finding that people that make one-time transactions go on and then do the $10 a month thing? In other words, like it's like try it once and then, or do you find that happens?
So yeah, we actually, that was a very good segue because we just launched the subscription offering today, or yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And,
okay. All right. I just looked up. I was just about to say you should do a subscription thing. And then I clicked over to see it and I was like, oh, he's already thought of it. Of course.
So that was the idea for the company from day one. It was just a matter of like kind of getting to the point where the catalog is like, you know, large enough with enough new titles releasing on a monthly basis to have a, you know, a real offering. And so what we saw that led us to build the subscription and got us excited was people would come in to buy one book, within a period of time, they would have on average, all of our customers had over 3 video books in their library. So we were like, people are coming in for one, and then they find others that they like, they're buying it, adding it to their library. And so they want more and more, right? And that, helped us push forward on building the all access subscription offering. That, just went live. We actually haven't formally announced it to our customers even yet. Where, it's kind of like the beta phase before next week. We're fixing things, making sure it works well.
So I'm breaking news. I'm breaking news for you guys today.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, no, it's and $10 a month, and you get all current video books and all video books for the year ahead. That's cool. It's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, I don't know that you remember this, not because I actually think that we ran it through you. We give out lit video books as thank you gifts to anybody who's on my podcast. So it's going to be weird for you because I can't give you back your own books. But we were buying them in like round lots of 10 before. I don't. You probably my assistant Christy. Yeah. And so that's what I would do because I have a new guest on the show probably every week, and not the problem is, but what happens is a lot of times my guests on the show are all authors themselves, and I think I even introduced you to Jay Bear. He's like, dude, how did you do that? You know what I mean? I was like, I find that I would think if I'm a best-selling author, if I'm Jay Bear, and then I go and I see this stuff, he's got to be like, oh my gosh, like how do I do that too? Are you finding that there's other authors that are just like knocking you up all the time, be like, how do I get in too? Are you finding that? I would find that wouldn't be a challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think early on, it's kind of like you have to get to a critical mass, right? Where, and we're getting pretty close to it, where now it's rare that any best-selling author that we talk to doesn't at least know one of the authors that's already live on the platform. Right?
Yep.
And we now have almost 150 deals signed with best-selling authors, and growing. And really, it's been predominantly word of mouth from authors sharing it with their friends, right? Saying, hey, like, Robert Cialdini launches Influence, and he's like, his friends that are also authors, he's like, you guys should check this out. And they're like, oh, wow, this is great. I want this for my book. And then they email, get introduced to Andy, who leads all of our author partnerships. And so it's really started to become more of a community, right? Of authors that are kind of supporting each other, and it's not really tied to the publishing house, right? And I think for us as a company, we care equally about two parts, right? One, like we really want our authors to be happy, and we want this to be like a powerful new way to build a new audience and generate new revenue, but also for consumers, right? And so as we build out the company, those are the two areas we focus on entirely, right? It's like keeping our authors happy, growing our partnerships, and making sure every author is like so happy with their content and their partnership with us, and then making sure consumers are as happy as well.
Yeah. What's funny is that I'm not sure whether you're familiar with this or not, but like when you watch Netflix, I feel like Netflix blew up the stand-up comedy market in a good way. You know what I mean? It's like comedians that never really had that platform. Now it's on this major streaming channel. But what I find is that I hear of a comedian once from Netflix, and then every time the comedian, like 2 years later, has his next show, or basically he puts out his next set, stuff like that, I start to like look forward to that when it's going to be on Netflix. Like I'm a big fan of a comedian named Bill Burr. His latest set just came out like 3 days ago. But like you can look back and you can basically see his whole trajectory for like the last thing. It's going to be funny. You guys are probably going to get to a spot now where it's just like you can take on new authors, but I think your audience might want to see, hey, what did Jonah put out again? What you know what I mean? And so on and so forth, you know? So it's going to be one of those, eventually it'll become a challenge of like, hey, I can't say yes to everybody, you know?
Yeah, no, you'd be surprised. We're in that already. And for all of our authors that have multiple books, we typically sign on all the books at once. Our plan is, we're basically, as we scale the subscription, right, and the subscription offering, really, if you could look across like the top 20-ish categories of nonfiction, right, everything from, parenting to, spirituality, health, wellness, finance, marketing, economics, we want to have the top books, top authors within each of those categories, right? That's like the baseline. I think, that's how we get to point A of where we want to be. But I think as we grow, we're going to learn from our customers, like, hey, we want another Mike McKelwick's book. We want another Jonah Berger book. We want Persuasion by Robert Cialdini as well, right? And then that will help inform whether we trigger production on those titles as well to deepen the catalog per author, right? But we're at the phase now where we're saying, hey, let's like build out as many kind of top titles within a variety of the main categories in nonfiction and best-selling nonfiction with authors that are just so well known, so well respected, to help us kind of like build up our audience, right? And then we want to go more niche, because what's really interesting in publishing, like many other industries, like the top 5% of authors drive 95% of the revenue, right? And the part of the problem that comes with that is that the remaining 95% don't have access to an audience. They don't have a large social media following. They don't have a publisher willing to spend millions of dollars on promoting them, right? They're just not Malcolm Gladwell. But there will become a time where we'll just say, hey, look, we know our audience wants more entrepreneurship, right? And we can go to an author that isn't Brian Chesky, or isn't, like Peter Thiel, right? That's like a mid-list author, and say, hey, look, we already have the audience. You have a really interesting story. We're going to give you the platform, right?
Wow.
Which is very difficult to do in the way that publishing is currently structured, because they're just like, look, I mean, unless your book, sells an insane amount. And this is kind of what happens with James Clear. His book didn't initially sell that well. When it started catching steam, the publisher's like, hey, I'm going to spend a ton of money growing this, right? But they don't really spend that much money on anyone that they don't think is going to be like a massive, massive hit. And the moment after 6 months that it doesn't necessarily hit their numbers, they're like, all right, like, we don't really care, because they're not earning us revenue, right? And so I think there's just a huge opportunity. Like, authors deserve more as creators, and they can't get that through other channels, right? They don't get that through their publishers. And so I think we have an opportunity there.
Now, did you ever read a book? It's called This Is Never Gonna Work. It's about the story of Netflix.
No. Oh, wait, is that Mark Randolph?
Yeah. Phenomenal book, right? But talks about the membership model and stuff like that. But one of the things that Netflix did right is that they measured everything, and their analytics team and all that stuff was like super strong. But what was happening, even when they weren't profitable, they started developing really strong relationships with production houses, because what they were able to say is that when you go and the average person goes to the movie theater, it's extremely hard to know what people are walking into that movie theater, spending the money and stuff like that. But from a digital space, I know some information about when they first signed up for Netflix, but I also know what I used in advertising to get certain target markets and certain target audiences. And what they were doing is they were sharing their metrics and their numbers back with the production company, so they knew their own data on, hey, when you do this, when you put this movie out, according to previous history, our analytics is showing that you want to hit this target market audience with this message and this time. And so eventually the consumption data actually becomes an asset to a company like yours or like Netflix.
Yep.
And you don't even think about that, because you always just think, oh, you know what, they're just pumping out streaming content. You eventually start to view the consumer's data, not in a creepy way, but I'm just saying, like, just the basic things of like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, you as an author, you should know that these are the people that are watching and streaming your book. These are the people who are watching it all the way to the end. These are the ones who aren't. These are the people that are buying a membership from it. You know what I mean? It's probably be very interesting how much data you guys can probably collect over the next 3 to 5 years. It's almost...
It's pretty crazy. And I think there's two pieces to this that are really interesting. Like, right now, for an author, right? Let's say you publish with like Penguin Random House, the biggest publisher, and you get almost no data, right? Because it's so disintermediated, right? It's like Penguin Random House is the publisher. They're not actually selling the books. Barnes & Noble or Amazon are selling the books, or Audible, right? And that's just in the US. Amazon notoriously doesn't share any data with anyone except for themselves, right? Correct. So Audible, Kindle, and they basically own 70% of the book market. So the author basically has no idea who's actually buying their books or completing them in any way, shape, or form. And that's in the US. Internationally, right? Jonah's book is translated into, I don't know, 30 some languages, zero data, literally nothing. The agent oftentimes doesn't even know how books are selling internationally for a period of time. And with us, because we're fully vertically integrated and we have all the data, we can actually be the conduit that gives, allows authors to connect directly with their buyers and super fans, and also share data with them for global consumption. So many different things that they just wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. And it's a really big challenge because it's like you're kind of, as an author, you're kind of flying in the dark, right? You just like hear what your audience says on social media, and that's like basically how you determine whether or not your fans are reading your work.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool because I mean, you figure you develop the company, then you develop the content, and then as people consume the content, eventually, like there's not a joke, but there's literally a comment that says like data is going to be worth more than oil.
Yeah.
As your company grows, the data behind everything, you know what I mean? Like the value you could probably bring to a market that's basically like you just said in the dark. It's super cool, man. Really cool.
The last, I think the last piece of the business that we didn't really talk about, or well, there's obviously a lot, but this one piece I think is kind of interesting is we get global rights in all languages and all territories. And so if we want to distribute Contagious in Mandarin or in Hindi or in Spanish in any country around the world, in the video book format, we're able to do that, right? But that is practically impossible to do in traditional publishing, because normally I'm paying Random House to be like, I get the North American rights to Contagious, and then Jim, as the agent, would say, I'm going to sell foreign translation rights to all these different countries, and then there'll be a different publisher in those countries that dubs it, translates it, and then distributes it. So by the time a book is released, right, it'll be at least 1.5 to 2 years before it's really distributed prominently in other languages and other territories around the world. Whereas with us, it's like Netflix, right? Like you can just flip a switch and it's on in 192 countries, right? Wow. And you can dub it and you can subtitle it, and we'll actually at some point be able to say, okay, this book came out on day one. It will be in 200 countries in 3 months before the actual physical book or the audiobook will even be there, because we're fully vertically integrated, and we're not, we don't have to deal with all the regulations and the problems that already exist in the industry. And so it's like a movie, right? It's like a movie. There's always global distribution rights. There's no limitations on that. Same thing with the video book. And so I think that would be a huge opportunity. That's that's still down the road. We're just focusing on this right now, but.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Man, I could talk to you for I'm so fascinated right now, but I think we're starting to come to our time. So, Ronak, so tell me just a little bit more. If you started the subscription model today, it's $10 a month for basically unlimited content. You've got relationships with 150 books. You're going to be churning this stuff out. To my listeners, how would they find out about you? Do you want authors reaching out to you, or you're like, hey man, I don't need to hear from authors right now? Like, how would people connect with you?
Yeah, so I mean, email, and any listener can email me, Ronak at litvideobooks.com, and any authors that are interested as well. Anyone that does reach out, I'll probably introduce them to Andy, who leads all of our author partnerships. He's our CEO. It's just Andy at litvideobooks.com. But I'm super responsive over email. Any questions, thoughts, reach out.
Yeah. This is great. Well, I'm super impressed with everything you guys have built over there, and a huge fan. We'll be a member as of today, and just want to thank you for coming on. This has been wonderful.
It was a pleasure. No, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
This is great. This is great. And to my listeners, obviously, Digital Marketing Masterclass, we try to put this out at least once a week. It's my goal to have conversations like we had today with some of the biggest thought leaders who are disruptors, people who are inventing new categories, people like Ronak who are just basically in some way, shape, or form, kind of changing the world, specifically in the world of marketing, self-improvement, things like that. So we want to thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please click on the notification bell. We want to try to get these videos to you as often as possible, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this video. What I wanted to do now is share something with you that we believe is very special. What we wanted to share is something we call the Ferritic Unique Process. What you'll see on this page is this is our entire roadmap that we've built over the last 21 years. We implement this process for all of our inbound marketing clients, and we believe that if you implement some of these strategies into your own marketing, you're going to have tremendous results. We've developed this page to be not only in video format, but also text and chapter format as well. When done effectively, this process is going to help your organization build marketing systems that generate leads, nurture leads into clients, and then convert those clients into raving fans of your product, service, mission, and vision. If you have any questions or concerns about anything that you've read, or you would like to kind of walk through this with one of our specialists, please reach out to us. You can do that at info@faratech.com. So once again, the domain to find out our unique process is faratechuniqueprocess.com.